Hello Biblioniauts, I am Grix among other things, and I just wanted to give you a small quick reading update because I know I haven't been posting as many videos as I used to. For like a couple of months, I was posting a video every day, and then I started posting one a week, and now I think it's been more than a week since the last video I posted, and that's because the end is approaching, the end is near. I am leaving the UK very soon, and I had to get a full-time job for the last weeks here so that I could afford the month of transition from countries. I'm going first back to Spain and then to Croatia, where I will start working in mid-May. But until mid-May, I'm not going to be doing anything. So basically, I'm doing just double shifts every day now from 10 to 10. With no days off, which of course doesn't leave me a lot of time either for reading or for making videos. Especially making videos is definitely not my first priority. This is not even an apology video. I know some booktubers, when they are absent for a while, they do make videos like apologizing to their viewers for not making videos as regularly. I don't have that sense of accountability. I don't think that I must. So I am not saying sorry for not making the videos. I'm just giving you sort of like a bit of context and an explanation as to why that has been, and also why probably the volume of books that I will be reading this year will not be as much as I would have liked. I look back almost misty-eyed to my first year in university. Not the first year in university, actually. The year before starting university was the year I read the most books in my life. I read like 150 something, over 100. I know it was over 150 and less than 200. I think the first video I made on this channel was, or one of the very first videos that I made talking about books, was the recounting of my favorite books from that year, so you can go there and count them if you want. But since then I've been only decreasing in my reading count because of real life events and situations and projects. Some of them are taking me towards reading more in the future, others are taking me further away from having the time to read. But the number one like major project that I'm doing, apart from other things that I prefer not to talk about in this channel, is to obtain a room of my own, which, as the famous essay announces, is fundamental both for reading and writing. And I've definitely suffered a lot throughout my life of not having a room of my own. I often have had to share a room with 7 people. That's to live the way I live, to travel to the places I have traveled, and enjoy the experiences that I have experienced. I had to sacrifice something, and in most of cases, it was either my time or my privacy or my sense of an intimate space or something like that. But I'm no longer there. I'm right now on the midst of finalizing one of the biggest projects of my life, which is to obtain a piece of land with the house that I will be restoring, in which I will have my own room and plenty of space in general. And yeah, that of course is a priority at the moment. So I am sorry, I won't be super regular for the next couple of months. I'll still try to make videos when I have the time, but more often than not, when I have the time, I'll need to rest and think about myself and not about making videos. And even if I do have the time, that doesn't mean that I will have the time alone so that I can actually continue to make this video. So yeah, until summer probably. Then in the summer, because I'm just gonna be like a boat driver, like a captain, and taking divers into Brac Island, or Hvar actually, in Croatia. Then I'll probably have a lot more time, because while they're diving, I'm alone in the boat, I can make videos there. So yeah, that being said, I am reading, and I have been reading, and I have reading projects. So I thought I'd give you like a quick update on what I'm reading, because I'm loving what I'm reading. I'm happy I postponed the major projects that I had before, but I'm loving what I'm reading right now. So I'll show you that. First of all, I am reading this City by Simak. This was on my read booktubers favorite books list for a long time. It's one of Sean Distenfa's favorite books, and also one of Michael Kevaughan's favorite books. And as you know, if you don't, I'll make sure to link in the description the video. I have proposed myself. I've gave myself the challenge of reading one favorite book from every booktuber that I like or that I know about in booktube. And not only that, but like if any of you has a favorite book and you are willing to, once I read it, make a video call with me on this channel and talk about that book with me, I will read your book. So you have that power. You can always make me read one book. If I love that book, then we can talk about more books, but at least one book. And in this case, Sean organized a group read with a bunch of other booktubers in Boxer, and we are reading it together. I broke a few of the rules because I started too late because of finishing War and Peace. And when I started, rather than reading one story a week as we were supposed to do, I read like the first 4 stories, and I stopped myself. I had to, because I honestly could sit down and read this full book and then reread it again in one sitting. It's one of the quickest and most enjoyable reading experiences that I've had in my life. It's so fun, and I cannot even imagine. Like I know that like maybe people like Sean or Michael have grown up reading this. Like they probably read it when they were even younger than me, and I think if I would have read something like this when I was like 16 or 15, I would have read all Clifford the Simak, and now I understand a little bit why, because it's so fun and it's so interesting. It's like sci-fi, but I don't know, all the sci-fi that I've read, like Asimov or more dystopian, like Yevgeny, it's a bit too heavy on like trying to like present you like great ideas that then they're not able to actually match on the paper with like a complex a story as it could be. But Clifford is all just like, like he has ideas that are like very interesting, and sci-fi always does that, but also just the story is so fun to read. And this is just a collection of short stories, is tales collected by a dog historian in a future in which humans have long been forgotten. The humans, as a species, are so far in time from the moment in which they encounter themselves and we encounter these tales, that dogs doubt the existence of humans at all. So the dog historian is always ironically talking about these tales as sort of like, myths or legends about dogs and humans. And he even at some point hypothesizes that humans might be some sort of like deity that dogs created to feel better about themselves. So the tales that are sort of like ancient tales that this dog historian is presenting to other dogs, and with a really handy editor's note at the beginning of every short story, are sort of progressively moving forward in time. And it's funny how like at the first story, like the more humans appear in the story, the more the dog historian has to prepare his readers for talking about such an alien creature as humans. Of course, this is just this is just dogs. This is just humans, really. Like it's the dog here speaking in the dog voices are completely anthropomorphized, or are human conceptions of dogs. But it's still creating this like other narrative, this second species voice, and from like, even if it's from like a very human idea of how a dog would think and write, doesn't remove any of the fun from the reading experience. And there are many themes throughout the book, and the stories are interconnected. Some characters I've seen so far that some characters are from the same lineage. Like in one story, one character is not able to fly to another planet because of agoraphobia, and in the next story, a character that is his grandson, I think, does the thing that the other one was not able to do. Like there's a continuity throughout the stories so far. But for me, the most interesting thing is that, and there's also like the idea of like cities as sort of like, again, something that like they cannot even conceive of. Like it turns out that like in this dog futuristic world, cities are not a thing. And the first story is about that. The first story is about like how cities were more and more invaded by multinationals, by businesses, by massive skyscrapers with offices, complexes, and people started migrating away from those cities because of that. To the point in which cities became basically like conglomerations of sellers with no one to buy, or that's the idea that I got from it. And I I think that is not far from the truth of how things are heading. I don't know if you've read anthropology's book, this anthropology book called Non-Places by Mark Auge. It's an essay, actually. It comes with another essay on over modernity. Normally, because they kind of like match. They're really good together. And basically, the idea is that there are many places that we are building as a species, that are creating like airports, hotels, that are completely removed from their anthropological contextualization in society. Like an airport in Dubai and an airport in London are the same kind of building. There is not it's not a place to live. It's a place completely sterile of human life. You cannot identify any identity. And cities, in my opinion, are, and this, I wrote an essay about this, but I believe that cities and many other epicenters of human life are becoming non-places, and that of course has many different consequences on the human mind and our psychology. There is, like, I'm not saying that I'm making it sound like this is a very complex book. It's not. This is a very fun, like very, very easy to read book. Like anyone could read this book and enjoy it. And it's, again, like one of the fastest reading experiences that I've had. And also so fun that, like, very, very rarely, I believe that the last time this happened to me was with Dune, that I kind of like was afraid to open the book again because I didn't want to finish it. Most of the times when I'm enjoying a book a lot, I read faster. But I just finish the book basically as fast as I can. And when I'm not enjoying a book, I tend to do exactly the same. I also read it faster so that I can finish it as fast as I can. But when I'm enjoying a book like to this degree, and I'm starting to realize that I like sci-fi especially. I haven't read that many sci-fi, and that's great because that means that I have a lot of sci-fi left to read. But I think that the next level of enjoyment is when, like, I literally do not want to touch the book because I know that once I open it, it will be over. And that's happening to me with this book. And to be fair, I know that I will open this book probably on my break tomorrow after work. Not during work, basically in between the two shifts. And I'll probably finish it there. So, yeah, highly recommended. And yeah, this is something that at some point you'll see a video about. I don't know when, because one thing is when I read this book, and a different thing is when will I have the time to recommend this book, to like actually talk about it for like, actually, I kind of did that now, so maybe I don't need to make a video about it. But yeah, the next book is just as interesting and more important. And this is a book that came to me recommended in the Open Letters review by Steve Donaghy, or in the ranking of 2023. I think it was first on the ranking, first non-fiction book that he recommended, Steve Donaghy. And I understand why. This is a mega, like a incredibly relevant and important book. Very recently, the channel Bookish made a video about 10 hard books that you don't have to read. And I wrote down in the description that, I wrote down in the comments that you don't need to read any book. I even made a video as well, which I will also make sure to link in the description, everything that I'm mentioning, also the review or the ranking for the Open Letters review about this book. But I made a comment on his video where he sort of like announces like different books that you don't have to read, that you don't really need to read, or you don't have to read any book. And I was surprised at like the different opinions that people brought on the comments of my comment. As like I realized that many people don't agree or haven't even thought about the fact that you don't need to read any book. Most times when people says that you need to read a book, What they mean is that you need to know something that that book has. There are certain things that you ought to know as a human in Western society, or probably as a human anywhere, but definitely as a human in Europe or in the US or in any other first world country. For example, one of the things that you ought to know is you should know something about the geopolitical implications of your geographical and randomly attributed privilege. I, you should know that you are wearing and carrying on your pocket like other people's suffering, for example. And not only are there things that you should know regarding the consequences that your existence posits among others, so that you can have comforts that you don't really need, but there are also things that affect you that you don't know that affect you, or you might not properly or profoundly know that affect you, that you should know. You can know and you can learn about all of these things without ever opening a book. And that's why I don't think that you should ever read a book, like should as like you should, because you can access that information in many different ways. But I do think that writing is the most perfected form of human thinking, and that's why I've like writing for me has always been like my number one thing. Of all the things that I do, writing is the one that I identify myself. I could renounce everything else, but not writing. And because of that, not technically, but normally, you will find in books the best expression of those things that you ought to know. And this is something that everyone should read in that sense. I probably will both make a video responding to bookies about like 10 hard books that you don't need to read, and another about 10 books that you should read, that you ought to read. Not 10 classics that you must read, which is a booktube classic by now made by Katie Books and by Steve Donaghy, but just 10 books that you should read for the contents, not for their relevance in the literary canon, but for their contents, for the things that they are saying. And I'm sure Steve would disagree with that, probably because he has a very how did I say that, like Erasmunian way of looking at teaching and reading in general. Like, you know, it should be something that you do for fun, and fun is the ultimate object of reading. I don't think that is the case. I don't agree. I think that sometimes you should read for other reasons that are not fun. Again, there are other ways to access that information, but in this case you get both. This is in a very not nice way. It's a fun read. It's a good book. It's well written, and it's incredibly relevant, and you will be fascinated in every page. And it's about how your mind, your behavior, has been used as raw materials for the production of advertisements. They tend to say, there's a saying that says that, like, if something is free, then you are the product. And people have thought about that in relation to targeted advertisement, to cookies, to the many ways in which your privacy is breached every single day. But it's actually not the case. And this book is also throughout is making sure that you understand that it's not you that is the product, is your behavior. The system feeds you your own patterns of behavior converted into a new product that you will buy, and therefore retrospectively retrospectively like influencing that behavior on the next cycle. The actual customer of companies like Google or Facebook or YouTube is not you. It's the institutions, it's the businesses, the companies that pay for the advertisements that you see. You are just the source, the resource of behavior that they need. Or at least that's what I've got about this book so far. This book talks a lot about like actual in the world events and things that happened, history of Google and Facebook and Apple and how all of these companies changed throughout the last 15, 23 years. But also it talks about the implications, the moral implications of this, and eventually, promisingly, I have not read that much of this book because I don't have the time, but it's fascinating so far. It talks about how to to become aware of that, and I think at some point he's going to talk about how to elude that control to a certain degree, or what kind of things or regulations should we be asking for, or what kind of way of thinking should we adopt. Because one of the things that makes it so hard to defend ourselves from technology is that technology changes a lot faster than law, or than even human evolution. So it's very hard to constantly adapt, and we need new frameworks and new terminologies to refer to the things that are being done to us. Because your mind is not just a behavior that is being shaping your behavior, and telling you what you should do, and giving, like, basically putting you in that narrow path of targeted advertisement, also shapes your mind, shapes the way you think, and says how much and about what you can think. And that's also something that has been appeared in this channel a couple of times, most recently about social media versus your life, which is a video I made in response to other videos. I don't know when, but I'll find the time to like link in the description everything before I upload this video. Highly recommended, and I'll definitely be making. In an ideal world, I would be making a read along of this. In an ideal world, I'd be reading a book or 2 books a week, which is what I used to read before taking over like 5 different projects that are all relatively long-term and major. But yeah, super happy about what I'm reading, and also a very nice complementary read. Depending of these are 2 books that require 2 completely different states, moods, spatial contexts to read and enjoy. And then 2 books that I'm gonna be reading, most likely right after those 2, and that both let's say that they both represent a end on my circumstances, or in some ways they are like a period on a stage of my life. One is Middlemarch, which is said by many to be like the best English novel ever written. I don't know about that, but I'm about to find out. I want to read this, and Micah Cummins and Novella Classics and Company, I think, are making a group read about this book. I wanted to join them, but then I opened those other 2 books and I realized that like I wanted to read that. And also this seems to me to be a book that is better enjoyed at a slower pace, than not so much at a slower pace, but with more focus. I don't want to be reading anything else when I'm reading this, because I opened it, and to me it definitely gave me like, War and Peace kind of vibes of like the slowness and like let's draw a bigger picture kind of thing. Let's actually give you time to sit down and live in this world. And that kind of book I always like to read in like by itself, without any other thing reading parallelly, which is actually how I like to reading in general. Like in an ideal world, again, I would be reading 1 book at a time, and I would be reading 1 book every 2 days or 3 days. But because I have so many variables going on at the same time, then I have to match different books. So here we are with another book that I'm also very excited to read. And this is a completely different kind of reading experience. This is metamodernism. I believe Jason Storm might be one of the best philosophers alive in terms of their theory, what they are writing. Actually a philosopher, rather than a doxographer, rather than a historian of philosophy, rather than someone who's just like regurgitating what others said before, but actually moving philosophy forward. I read The Myth of Disenchantment. I have a review on this channel. I'm not only going to read this, but if I read this, I will definitely do a read along, because I don't think there is any read along of this book so far. I have had this book and wanted to read it since like the day it came out, and which is like 3 years ago or something like that. And and hopefully I'll be able to contact him and even get to interview him afterwards, because I'm sure I'm gonna have a bunch of questions. This book is right on the edge of my comfort zone when it comes to philosophy. This is as recent as it gets. So there you go, Metamodernism, the future of theory. Another book that probably I'll be doing a read along, and it might be something that you are interested on. I don't know. I tend to traverse my read alongs of philosophy quite alone, but that's okay. The videos stay there for whenever anyone wants them or needs them. And those are my reading projects. That's how I am and what's going on. I hope you guys are doing well. There's a bunch of videos in BookTube that I'm wanting to watch, and I don't even have time for that. But I'll be freer than ever very soon, and then ever freer. So that being said, I'll see you on the other side. I'll try to make a couple more videos today with different clothes and then post them in different days, so that you get some more of my face, which I'm sure you all love, in the coming weeks. And yeah, that's all. I'll see you on the other side, and thank you, Octo.